minute from now, we will get Shireen to give us more details on what she's picking up. But for now, the market is responding to this, up almost about 0.5%. In fact, not just the Sensex and the Nifty, but the mid-caps as well. The Bank Nifty is up 1.5% now. A sudden spike up in the Bank Nifty. Bank of Baroda, ICICI Bank, PNB, Axis Bank. This is the single positive trigger that the market is awaiting.
Actually, the one that's risen most after that news is TVS Motor. That stock went up for some reason, as did Dish TV. But then you are right, it's the banking stocks that have surged the most in the past few minutes. Bank of Baroda, Union Bank, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, PNB have all risen significantly in the last few minutes, especially after this news. So buying of the market and the Bank Nifty is clearly noticeable. Shireen Bhan, who broke this headline for us, is joining in. Shireen, tell us everything that you picked up. This is what the market really wants to hear.
You know, Lata, this is what I've been pointing out for a few days now, in fact, weeks now. And I think the sense within the government also is, and which is why you're now seeing the Prime Minister intervene, that at the level of the Finance Minister, perhaps things were reaching a head. As you heard Mr. Chidambaram on this channel say that on the eve of the Parliament, for the Finance Minister to call the Congress's demands preposterous, to call their demands unacceptable, was not really a way for the government to be reaching out to the Congress party. Remember, all other regional parties, whether it's the JDU, it's the NCP, it's the BSP, everyone else is on board with the exception of Tamil Nadu, which is AIADMK. They have concerns along with the Congress party. Now let's look at the three demands that the Congress party has been asking for. A low rate of tax, which is what our sources in the government seem to be suggesting, is that the Congress demanded 18% and the government is veering towards that, and there is logic for that. Look at the global average. The GST rate is 16.5%. It makes no sense to have a 25-26% GST rate. So that is the big demand. The government itself is veering towards that. On the issue of whether the 18%, whether it is 18% will be drafted into the constitutional amendment bill, the government has said that is unacceptable because you cannot keep going back to Parliament and getting two-thirds majority every time you require a rate change. The Congress party says that it is the Parliament's prerogative, and if you make a compelling case, the Parliament will give into your a need to hike the GST rate. So on that issue, it could continue to be sticky. On the 1% manufacturing tax, which the Congress has been demanding is inflationary, business says it's inflationary. The government in its own wisdom also knows that it's inflationary and it's a bad idea. There is a rethink. So on the majority of the issues, the government itself is willing to rethink and review. The question now is, how do you actually try and reach out to the Congress party? And I think that is why finally it seems to be that the Prime Minister is intervening. The Prime Minister is now reaching out to the senior most leaders of the Congress party, Sonia Gandhi, as well as the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and I understand that Rahul Gandhi is also likely to be a part of that meeting in an attempt to try and broker peace on this issue. Because on the substance of it, now there is much more alignment than there was in the previous session. As you heard Jayant Sinha say, the atmospherics are definitely better in this session for the passage of the GST. So finally, I think it is now the Prime Minister that has decided to intervene and to play a role, because otherwise it seemed like at the level of the Finance Minister, it was really not progressing much further.
Shireen, just one follow-up question. Of all the three demands that you mentioned, it seems like this 18% GST rate is something that could sail through easily. In your interaction with, a lot of corporates or India Inc., is this a level or is this a rate that that India Inc. and corporate India will be happy with and could go down well?
Well, of course, most certainly, because, Sonia, as we said, the previous rate that the government was talking about was 25-26%. That would have been an absolute no-go as far as GST is concerned. In fact, you've heard on this channel through the course of the last few weeks, the Department of Economic Affairs Secretary, the Minister of State for Finance, the Finance Minister himself saying that a low and reasonable GST rate is the need of the hour. A high rate would be, in fact, counterproductive to the success of the GST itself. As I was pointing out, the global average is about 16.5%. And we are also given to understand, and this was a story that our colleague Nantara also was reported a couple of days ago, that perhaps there could be a positive surprise even as far as 18% is concerned. And that was what our government sources were telling us will expose the Congress party, because the Congress has been demanding 18%. And if the government were to do 18% or even lower, then what face will the Congress party oppose the GST?
No, but Shireen, the opposition to 18% never really came from the parliament or from the NDA and the BJP, NDA and the Congress. It's been coming from states who want to keep petroleum out, electricity out, alcohol out. And if you keep away so many of the revenue generating items out of GST, from the balance pool, you have to have a higher GST rate to make it revenue neutral. The real bone of contention is, are you getting a sense? Are you getting a sense that those items will be included?
No, I don't think there is going to be a complete overhaul as far as the architecture that was presented in the bill in the previous session. Because let's be very clear, the government is compensating state governments. It's guaranteed. There is absolutely no question of states coming on board unless the government were to guarantee them compensation for any revenue loss. That is part of the bill. That is part of the agreement that has been arrived at with state governments. So there is absolutely no question of the government reneging on that. And that was what was the recommendation of the parliamentary panel on the GST. And that has been accepted as the stated position of the government, that they will compensate states for any loss in revenue. So that is not an issue. Now, the concern will be whether they will finally put this 18% into the constitutional amendment bill. My sense is that that is one point where we will continue to see a difference of opinion, and perhaps the Congress may yield to the government. We're not sure at this point in time, but that is the sense that we get. But the sum and substance is that you heard Amit Mitra, the finance minister of West Bengal, on the channel 24 hours ago. In fact, he is slated to be perhaps one of the top contenders to take over the empowered panel of finance ministers on the GST. And he very clearly said that an 18% tax rate for the GST is a good idea. It would be appropriate, and that is what the government should consider. So I think on that itself, I don't foresee any problem.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Shireen Ban, for joining us. This is definitely a shot in the arm for the progress of the Constitution Amendment Bill itself, but we will have to await results. As well, one has to wait for the CEA's panel report, the Chief Economic Advisor's report, where there are a lot of state representation, and there, it has to sail through all the state opposition to the various tweaking of the bill. The states' resistance to the centre's guarantee has been that in the case of the central sales tax, when the centre promised that it will fully compensate, it did not keep its word. And that hasn't gone well with the states. So there are still issues to be ironed out, but this is definitely a very big positive that the Prime Minister is reaching out. The markets, after seeing a high, are now